Insurance is found to be pretty boring by most people. I found it pretty boring initially. It's more of an engine to what I like to do, and that's to talk to people and socialize and inform people just basically on what it is that they're actually getting into when we talk about this insurance stuff. So I think this was a pretty boring subject until about 8 months ago with the fires that happened, and now everybody's paying attention a little bit closer to what they have because they realize how important it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and just talk a little bit about just about some insurance. And on the second page, I've actually I brought an example of a homeowner's policy that we'll flip to and from, so you can kind of see, do you have those things, do you not have those things, and then we'll go forth with that. So one of the things that you first, it's funny. I look at people, and when you buy a home, what do? You get a home inspection. You have all these people come through. They do the pest inspection, a home inspection. You've got all kinds of things that happen. The older the home, the more that seem like they have. So you spend all this time, all this money investing in trying to make sure the home is okay, but then all of a sudden, once you get it, you're like, well, I don't know, just take care of it. Whatever I need to get insurance for, just do it. So you may not know how much coverage you have, or what deductible applies, or did you get everything that you need in the event that something happens. I would almost bet that most of you guys wouldn't know what's on or not on your policy, okay? Because either the wife handles it, or it just auto-renews, and you're like, I'm good with it. I know I'm covered, because the mortgage company says I have to be covered. So I'm going to go through just a couple of things. Homeowners policies cover pretty much every disaster except for two. Okay, except for two. That's flood and earthquake. Those are not included. Those are completely separate policies. So if you think you have flood insurance, if you think you have earthquake insurance, you better have a separate policy that's not attached to that. Okay, so that's just one of those conceptions that I'm covered for everything. There might be other things that there's a various terrorist attacks might not be. I mean, it goes on and on, but they're unlikely those will happen. The other thing too that comes up a lot with people is art, wedding rings, silverware, maybe valuables, the jewelry, anything that comes down from a family member. I'm automatically covered. That's not true. There is stuff within your policy that will tell you what you have. For example, I know the policy, the one that you're looking at, the second page right there, that particular company will give you like $3,000 for art, and $3,000 for jewelry, and $3,000 for silverware. But if you've got an $18,000 wedding ring, and you think that if you lose that, or if something happens to it, and you can say, I'll just turn to my insurance company, they're going to say, I don't see anything on there that shows that would be covered. You get $3,000 for it, probably. That's it. So if you have valuables within your home, it's definitely worth looking into making sure that they're covered, because in the event that a fire happens, like they have, good luck trying to show somebody. I had a $10,000 painting I bought 3 years ago at an art show, okay, because it's in the ground somewhere here, all right? It's very, very difficult, and insurance companies are, they're in this last case, a lot of insurance companies stepped up, this last case, the fires, they stepped up and gave people a lot of money initially up front, but when it comes down to small things such as artwork and jewelry and everything that's not there any longer, you're going to have a hard time trying to get them to cover that, because there's no proof that it actually was there. I actually came across a story, I've got plenty of stories, as we all do, from the fires. There was a guy a real estate guy that called me from Santa Rosa and says, hey, my client has a business and he had all this artwork and jewelry, and he had $25,000 in cash that he just hadn't deposited. He just kind of said, I'll get to the bank. It's not covered, okay? Because there's no proof that it actually was there, okay? And I'm not trying to tell you like, hey, make sure everything's insured, you take pictures, but things need to be documented. Things need to be shown so that you can prove in the event that something happens to it that it's there, okay? So. Just one of the things that there's a common misconception when it comes to those types of items. As we move down the first page here, do I have enough coverage? Okay, this was the one that hit hard. I know, Gary's shaking his head right there. I'm sure he's heard plenty of stories. This hit people really, really hard in Santa Rosa. I just ran into a guy the other day who was with, I'm not even going to say the insurance company, but he was with an insurance company. He was on Marquest Springs Road. It's right there where Badass Coffee is, the corner, right where the fires initially hit. He had 6 acres. He had a 2,000 square foot house that was renovated within the last 6 years. He had a 3,000 square foot barn with hay and a 1,500 square foot metal shop that he had when he used to do metal shop work and all the tools in it. So all gone. So he goes to his insurance company and says, what am I insured for? Okay, because I want to start rebuilding. So she goes, well, your house is covered up to this amount. And he goes, and he used to be a contractor, and he says, ooh, that's going to be tough. I'm really having a hard time trying to understand why I have such little coverage. She goes, well, what about, he goes, what about the other buildings? She goes, what other buildings? And he goes, the barn, the shop, everything else. She goes, oh, this is just a homeowner's policy, so it doesn't cover anything else like that. So not only was he underinsured on his home, he had the incorrect policy that covered the additional buildings that he had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in to build, all gone. And now there's a lawsuit. Okay, there's a lawsuit, and we all know how lawsuits go. It takes a while. So understanding what it is that you need to be insured for is step number one. Do I need a farm policy? I live on 18 acres. Okay, a homeowner's policy is probably not the appropriate policy for somebody that lives on 18 acres. Actually, more than 6 acres is really what it comes down to. If you have more than 6 acres, you might want to think about that. So I'll flash back to some examples as we go, but one of the things that we look for when we're doing this is what is the cost to build per square foot, okay? Now, when the economy's bad, contractors will tell you, oh, it's 200, 250 a square foot. When the economy's great, it's 600. I just heard one Fountain Grove, $750 a square foot is what it was cost. And this is a custom home, so it is going to be more expensive. It is on the higher end. But go back 6-8 months ago, that might have been 500 a square foot. Because of the supply and the demand right now, everything's a lot higher. So it fluctuates. But when we look at this, you could do simple math right here. If you live in a standard tract house, okay, if you live in a standard tract house like I do, okay, that's 1,600 square feet, it's probably going to be between 250 to 300 square foot to rebuild that. That's just kind of a ballpark. I'm not a contractor, and we have tools that will help us compute this. But if you look and you do the math, and you take your coverage, okay, and you divide it by your square footage, and if you're at a low number that's less than like 250 or getting low into the ones, you're in trouble. Okay, you're in trouble. That's not enough coverage. And anybody in here, even realtors, will know that vaguely what it costs to be able to rebuild a home. So that's just somewhere where you can start and go, do I have enough coverage? Do the math. Okay, do the math. Your coverage divided by square foot will tell you exactly what it is, all right, to rebuild. And then you can go to your contractor buddy and say, what does it cost to rebuild my house? And they'll tell you, okay, they'll tell you an inflated price right now, but they'll be able to give you something that you can hold that to. The other thing that you want to make sure is you see on item or number 2 right there under do I have enough coverage, extended dwelling replacement costs. This is one of those ones that should be on every single policy. As insurance agents, we're not contractors. I'm not going to tell you what it costs to rebuild your house. I'm going to give you an approximate window. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you have is extended dwelling replacement costs. And what that does is that allows for either 125, I don't suggest that, go to 150, it costs a couple bucks. But you look on page 2, if you check the page 2 and you go to the bottom right there, and it says optional coverages, and it says extended dwelling coverage, okay? Notice it says optional, okay? It means it's not required, okay? But it should be on there, okay? It should be on there. What that means is that you get 50% of whatever your house is covered for if it's needed to rebuild. So you'll see in this case right here, on this policy right here, you see coverage A, it says dwelling, right in the middle of the page, it says $380,400. Take half of that, and that's what you'll get if it's needed to rebuild your house. Okay, if it's needed. So I just had somebody that's just rebuilding up in Lake County from the fires that happened from 2015, 16? They're halfway through their home right now, okay? And the way that they've already busted into that 50%, they needed basically 25% more to complete their home to get it back to where it needed to be. Okay, so the whole point of insurance, just as I should have said earlier, is to get you back to where you were prior to a loss. Okay, to get you back to where you were prior to a loss. Okay, now if you have a home that's built in 1980 and you haven't done anything, okay, the cost to get your home back to where it was going to be a lot more. Some of the stuff isn't even there anymore. For mica countertops, do they even make those anymore? I mean, they don't do really, I don't know if they really do tile countertops anymore. I mean, they could, but I'm saying is that the cost to replace is a lot higher than it was years and years ago. So that's why it's important to make sure that you have that 125 or 150 on top, because again, it's just an arbitrary number, okay? That's basically computed by a calculator, and it could be right, it could be wrong. So that kind of gives you a little safety net in your policy to make sure that you have enough coverage. Moving down, some of the other coverages, it says you'll see on the policy right here, and as I kind of reference back and forth, it says loss of use. Loss of use is really important. This obviously is people in the fire finding out how important this is. In the event that your house burns down, loss of use or additional living expenses, what it's called, that gives you money to go live somewhere else until your house is rebuilt. Okay? So for example, this guy this on Marquest Springs Road, he said, I'm getting $5,000 a month from my insurance carrier to live. They went out and bought a smart house, or a tiny house, okay, one of those little tiny houses. It cost him $100,000, and he'll pay it off, and he'll be able to sell it and probably make some money. But point being is that he gets basically a $5,000 stipend for 18 months. Once that 18 months is up, if you haven't replaced or rebuilt, it's done. That's it. Okay, they're not giving you. They're most likely not giving you any more money. So it's really important to make sure, and that will be on every policy. I can assure you, no matter what insurance company you're with, that's going to be on there. Okay, so just so you know what that means. Personal liability. This is one that I see a lot of. We live in the state of California. It tends to when you get into a legal action, it's tough. Okay, and let's just say that we all at some point in time we've hosted parties or had people come over to our house or something like that. Maybe we're working on a project and we haven't completed the bathroom and goes in there and somebody trips and falls and sprains their ankle or breaks their ankle for whatever reason and decides that they can't work any longer and they don't have they have lost wages, okay, and pain and suffering and all these other items that they can come up with, and they get an attorney, and an attorney comes to Joanne and says, Joanne, we're suing you for $700,000. And you're going, huh? For what? Long story short, you get into litigation, and they win. And $700,000. Your policy will cover $500,000 of that, but who's going to pick up the other two? Who's going to pick up the other two when that liability is exhausted? And one of the things that you can look at is a personal umbrella. Okay, a personal umbrella. We'll step into that a little bit later, but point being that liability I've seen on some policies is as low as $100,000. $100,000 will do nothing in the state of California. Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, speaking of an attorney, he's shaking his head. $100,000 goes nowhere. Okay, that's Chris. That's what Chris starts at, is $100,000. So moving down, personal property. These coverages are percentages of whatever you're insured for. So the lower you have an insurance as far as your home, the lower all these figures will go. It's just a fixed percentage that you have. So personal property, what does personal property cover? Okay, what does personal property cover? Basically anything not attached to your house. Refrigerators, stoves, microwaves, furniture, clothes. I don't know, we can keep going on and on, whatever you can come up with. All that stuff it goes under personal property. So again, that's on your policy, I can assure you, without even looking at it, it's there. The one I want to get to, if you flip to page 2 at the bottom of it, it says personal property replacement cost. Here's another one that people got really upset in Santa Rosa about. They didn't have this. Okay, they didn't have this. What this means is that when you have personal property replacement costs, they will not depreciate. It will not depreciate the item. It will replace it with like kind and material. So if you have a 50-inch flat screen that you bought 10 years ago and you don't have personal property replacement costs, they're going to depreciate it. They're going to say it goes down $100 a year, so you paid $1,000, you've had it for 10 years, you get zero. You get nothing. Okay? But if you have personal property replacement costs, okay, they look and go, okay, we owe you a 50-inch LG TV screen. That doesn't mean you go out and get the 55, with the HD, wraparound, whatever the new one is. You just get something that's similar to what you have. Okay? So it's really important that you check that box right there, because some companies offer it for free, some charge like $10. $10 to have that right there. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't have that on their policy. Okay? We talked about the limits for the art, jewelry, silverware, guns. There was a guy up in Santa Rosa that had a $24,000 gun collection. Had it in a safe. It was supposed to be fireproof. Okay? We heard how hot the fires were. Okay? The safe melted with all the guns in it. $24,000 in guns. Gone. He was a collector. Okay? He was a collector. See you later. So, so you have to ask the question. okay? As an insurance agent, I can't guess what's in your home. I can't go and say, do you have guns? I can ask so many questions, but then you have to give me something else. You've got to tell me what's in there, because I don't, not on all cases do I walk through a home and then go, oh, what's under there? Oh, there's a gun case. Do you have insurance for that? Sometimes we write policies sight unseen based on what the person is telling us. So just keep that in mind as you look through. Find out what your deductible is. Find out what your deductible is. What do you owe in the event that there's a loss? What is it that you owe? What's your responsibility? Okay. Some people have them as low as 500. Some have as high as 5,000. But that's just a key thing to look for, because in the end you're going to go, I owe money. My house burned down and now I owe money. Yes, you do. You signed up for it. That was when your insurance agent, when you bought that house and your insurance agent said, here's the policy, and you go, just send me to the part where I signed. And you sign at the end, well, guess what? There's that deductible that's going to apply in the event that something happens. Secondary properties. What happens if a secondary home or rental property? So people that rent, okay? This is, again, I'm just using Santa Rosa. People that had rental homes, okay, that didn't have renter's insurance, lost everything and had no place to go with no money, okay? For like about $200 or $225, maybe $250 a year, you can get a renter's policy that gives you something. It gives you peace of mind. It gives you $30,000 of coverage, and it gives you $9,000 to go live somewhere else in the event that something happens. But I can't tell you how many people that I heard of were displaced and had no money from any insurance because they chose not to. They go, well, either I didn't want it or I didn't know about it or whatever. That's not going to apply to me. I'm not even kidding you. It's like between $150 to $250 for just a simple renter's policy. It would just give you something. Okay, it would just give you something in the event that something happened. And people are looking at it a whole lot differently now. So secondary properties. Some of you guys have secondary properties that either are homes or maybe you rent them out to people. Okay, you got to look at those just as close. Okay, you got to look at those just as close. I don't know if you heard about the doctor from Memorial in Santa Rosa. He had a place up in Fountain Grove that got burned down in a fire. And then when the fires happened down south, the place that he just moved from, that he was renting out down south, burned in that fire too. He lost both. Yeah, coincidence, or not coincidence, but it's just terrible. It's terrible. So, but you got to look at those just as close. Okay, just as close. I see a lot of people, it's just a secondary home. It's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. It really is, because when you're looking at this, the things that I'm talking about could be $100 difference. It's so minimal. It's not even worth trying to fight over. I mean, if you're being oversold or someone's trying to upsell you, you'll know. You'll know. You guys, everybody in here has been around long enough to know when they're being oversold or somebody's trying to get one over on them. But most of the time when people do this stuff or when they sell you these policies, it's suggestive. They're trying to get you to make sure that you have the right stuff. And honestly, it's really not that much of a difference in cost. It really isn't. Because if you pay $150 a year for the next 10 years, it's what, $1,500 versus the loss that you could take and everything that comes from that, the pain and the suffering and the frustration that you're going to have, you're going to be so glad. You're going to look back and go, that was the best $1,500 I spent right there because I spent $150 more a year. So again, it's just things that you need to be looking for as you review your policy. One of the other things, I'm kind of going off here, I just remembered, people always wonder, but there was this misconception that happened. And actually, there were stories where people up in Santa Rosa were calling people that had, for example, I vacate my house, I call and I say, Joanne, can you take my car out of my garage and put it on my driveway? Because if it burns in my house, I'm not covered. It's not true, okay? You have two separate policies, okay? The car is covered by car insurance, the home is covered by the home. Now, here's one that happened. There was he's not here. It was a story that was told by a Rotarian here. This guy is, I think he's a painter, and he lived in Santa Rosa, and he'd worked really hard and he bought an older Porsche, sports car, but he was an older guy, he wanted to treat himself, his kids had moved out of the house, and he'd done really well, and so he bought this Porsche, and he forgot to insure it. So the fire comes through, wipes out the Porsche, he goes to report this, and they say, you don't have coverage. He goes, well, I should be automatically covered. Technically, yes, you are automatically covered when you get a car. I think you get some, depending on the company, it could be anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, automatic coverage. But if you don't have comprehensive and collision coverage, okay, which he didn't on his other two vehicles, he just had liability, those don't extend, that whatever you have on the vehicles that you have insured extends to the vehicles that you purchase. So if you have two vehicles, let's say you have two vehicles that are worth $2,000, like I just want liability, and then you buy like a brand new truck that's worth $40,000 and you don't put comprehensive and collision coverage on it, you don't have that until it's actually reported to the insurance company. So this guy had two beat up vehicles that he was totally okay with. He bought this nice one, forgot to tell him it needed to be insured, wiped out, gone. Okay? Now had he had comprehensive or collision coverage on the other vehicles, it would have extended to that vehicle and he's covered. So again, just kind of one of those goofy things that people overlook and they just go, oh, I'll get there, okay? It's really important to get that stuff reported because the sooner that it's on paper, the sooner that it's been told, somebody's told, you know, the less you have to worry about in the event that something happens. Here's one that I've been trying to educate my clients on. Proof of your stuff. Proof, okay? If everybody's house burned down right now, I bet money. There's some people that, Michael Caruana, I'll bet you one you can probably remember. You got a steel trap for him, yeah. You couldn't remember what everything is in your house until all of a sudden it's gone and you need it. Okay? If your house burned to the ground, you'd be like, oh, I think I have this, and I think I have that, and you go on and on and on. But all of a sudden, 3 months later, when you've already told your insurance company everything that you needed to get covered for, you need to get reimbursed for, you're like, oh, there goes my camping stuff, or you know, my fishing poles or whatever. I didn't realize it because it was in winter when the house burned down, and now it's summer and I want to go fishing. So what I'm telling a lot of my clients, we live in such a digital age. Take advantage of the digital stuff. Okay? Take pictures of each room. Take videos of your house. Okay? Because if you take pictures or videos of each room, then you can isolate the room and you go, okay, boom, I look at this and I guarantee you'll be able to remember because you'll look at that picture and you'll know what was in what place and how you can remember that stuff. I mean, it's really important. You could store that in a safety deposit box because people go, what if my phone burns up? Well, you know, it's in the cloud, safety deposit box. I mean, trust me, you can find a way to store that stuff. But it's really important that you update that because, you know, as the older you, the longer you live, the older you get, the more stuff you accumulate, maybe some of the more valuable stuff that you accumulate. It's important to make sure that you're able to recall what's there. So it's a really big deal. Again, we talked. Again, I can't touch on this stuff. You know, replacement cost content. It's such a big deal. You know, taking pictures of everything. It's so important because again, we especially when it's a traumatic situation like that, you're not going to sit there and remember. Like I said, the family in Lake County. Here we are 3 years later, and they're still remembering stuff that when they go up there, it's a secondary home. They go up and they go, I forgot that I put that on that list. Okay. Sometimes you can get it back. They'll be able to make an exception, but that's not always the case. Real quickly here, if you flip to page 2, if you look where it says important messages, this policy does not provide earthquake coverage. Okay? Black and white right there. Okay, I mean, it doesn't get any more clear than that. Okay, you go down to limits of liability. So with coverage A right there, it says 380,400. You see how everything goes down? Like coverage B is 10%. Okay, when we're working from left to right here. Okay, coverage B, other structures, 10% of coverage A. Coverage C is, I think in this case, it's 70%. Okay, then you go to coverage D, additional living expense. We talked about that, 76,000. And then you can go all the way across. So those are standard on all policies. All policies are should have this or are going to have this. So you can look at that and you'll be able to kind of identify your own coverages right there and what you have. You look a little bit lower than that, it says property coverage is a $2,500 deductible. And then, as I said, I mentioned at the bottom right there, there's optional coverage. It's the personal property replacement cost, the extended dwelling. Another big one is identity recovery. You know, it helps you recover your identity if it's stolen. So there's, like I said, there's all kinds of bells and whistles. You can keep adding on, and trust me, I can make more and more money, and I can charge you more and more money. But really, what it comes down to is what you need. There needs to be the nuts and bolts. Okay, the nuts and bolts in the event that again, your home or your stuff is gone, because that's the stuff that's the most costly and timely. So, anyways, that's kind of this whole presentation was built based on what happened in Santa Rosa. I mean, this is stuff that I would have talked about this before Santa Rosa, and I'll continue to talk about it after Santa Rosa. But this is the stuff now that people are going, oh, okay, I get it. Like it's new, okay, like it's new. Trust me, it's been around for a lot longer, okay, than I've even been in the business, okay, than I've been in the business. People just now are noticing it, or looking at it in a different light. So that's basically my presentation right there. I do, if there's any questions, I do want to go ahead and answer those. Got a ton of hands all of a sudden. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Banna.
Well, this is funny you're talking about this. My sister would kill me. But anyway, so we own a house. It's a rental. And we just put on some earthquake insurance to cover it for that. But she doesn't want to increase the rates of coverage because she sees how much we're paying right now, and she said she goes on and looked at Zillow, and Zillow says the house is only worth this much money. And she does not want to insure the place for any more money than what it's worth. Can you tell me what I can tell her? Because our insurance agent can't seem to get across the line.
It's funny you say it. So there was a couple, 6 months ago, they bought a house in Fresno. Okay, they bought a house in Fresno. They paid, I don't know, it was like a 1,500 square foot house. They paid like $150,000 for it, something like that. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in the 80s. And when I insured it, it insured for like $240,000. Okay, look, it's all different from where you live. I mean, the cost to rebuild is going to be a little bit different in some places than others, but not a ton unless you're talking Marin County or Fresno County. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to try. Again, it goes back to that formula that I shared with you: cost per square foot. Contact a contractor down there and ask them. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do this, but what does it cost to rebuild? Like that's somebody that doesn't even know what you have, and you say, what's the cost to rebuild? And they say it's $200 a square foot. Well, then you times it by your square footage of the home, and then you'll kind of get an idea. But I don't know that I'd go off of Zillow. I mean, it's just it's not wrong, but I'm not saying it's right. I mean, we all use Zillow as a barometer. It's nice to be able to see that, but that doesn't tell you what the current home value is. And the current home value also considers land. Okay, it considers land. So when you look on Zillow and it says your house is worth $600,000, that's the structure, that's the land, that's the whole thing. Okay. When you're doing insurance, you're only insuring the home. You're not insuring the land. Land is dirt. It's not going to burn. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay? Sure.
What's your take on earthquake insurance?
Insurance hat on or insurance hat off? On? I mean, off? Oh, you said off? Okay. Off? I personally think it's a ripoff. Okay? I personally think so. Let's take this into consideration. Let's use this example right here that's on page 2. Okay? $380,000. I'm going to try and do some quick math right here. So $380,000. A typical deductible on earthquake insurance is 15%, so $52,000 would be your deductible. $52,000 of damage needs to happen before that earthquake insurance company steps in and provides anything. Okay, $52,000, and it can go. I mean, imagine if you had an $800,000 home, right? You were insured for $800,000 because the earthquake insurance always matches whatever your homeowner insurance is covered for. So if you're at $800,000 and you have a 15% deductible, that's a $120,000 deductible you have before the insurance company. So you better hope, okay, that when that earthquake happens, you just kick the house over, okay? Kick it over and just, seriously. So you think about, here's my thing. Look, I'll have an E&O claim probably for this, but if you think about it, how many earthquakes have we had? I can remember back to 89. That's as far as I go. Some of you guys can go back a lot longer. Whose houses have been affected by earthquakes since then? Anybody turned in an earthquake claim? Napa did, correct. Napa did. Right. But some of those people weren't even able to apply their insurance. Okay, depending on the value of their home. Okay, so what I tell people, I mean, it's like less than 5% of my clients have it. Okay, and it's more because they're neurotic or have anxiety about it or whatever. I mean, it's just a personal thing. If it helps you sleep at night, then get it. Okay, then get it. But it's really cheap in a sense that it doesn't provide a lot of coverage if you choose to go that route. Because if you actually build it like you need it, it's going to cost quite a bit. Rick?
Can I just answer the question about, because if you only insure the house for what the reason the realtor said it was worth,
that doesn't help. That wouldn't help the people in Coffee Park right now because the cost of them building those homes is more than those under those homes are worth. And so if they only insured for what the supposed value of the house was, none of them would get in their house rebuilt. So to me, that's the answer to the question.
One of the things too that happened too, like people that got in trouble like in Coffee Park or other places, is that let's just say you bought your house. I bought my house in 1984. Okay, I go to the local AAA because that was the only place that was there. I go to AAA and I insure it, and it was $98,000 to insure in 1984. Okay, in these policies, in almost every policy, there's like an inflation guard that will go up 2 or 3% every year. You'll see your coverage it'll go up every single year. Okay, because the cost to rebuild, the cost of expenses, it goes up as well. If you're going up 2 to 3% a year over 20 years, you're not catching up to where we're at right now. And that's what happened, is that a lot of people were underinsured. They just renewed. It's funny, there was one guy that was so proud. I've been with AAA for 30 years. And I said, what did that do for you? He goes, nothing. Because now I owe money to rebuild my house. Because I renewed, and the cost to rebuild had increased so much, his policy hadn't caught up to that. His policy didn't catch up to that. Yes, Michael?
So I can go through and picture in my head what I have in every room in my house,
I
especially if there's any value. However, what if the place burns down and I don't have a record of it? In other words, I don't have photographs and I don't have a video. How does someone prove to the insurance company that in fact you had this stuff to begin with?
You can't. You're probably going to be out that. There's a really good chance that they're going to decline to provide any kind of coverage. Now, they may give you some money, and they may try and find it because they feel bad, or they try and slide it in somewhere else, but you're never going to get the true value. So if you had a $10,000 painting, and you go, God, I had this $10,000 Monet painting, or whatever it is that you had, there's no guarantee.
So when you do have a list of what you own, and then you have a value, do you have to have receipts for it, or just your...
So, yes, a receipt, okay, is one. A proof of purchase is always great to show that, okay? An appraisal. An appraisal is another route to go for that. That's another form of showing proof. So those are the two best ways to show that. Obviously, if you have a picture, there's still no guarantee. Even if you had a picture, it'd be really difficult to get it insured because they're going to go, your policy only states that you get X and X amount of dollars. You just showed me that this is worth $10,000, but your policy only has $3,000 of coverage. Okay, that's all I can give you because you chose not to insure it for what its worth or value was.
Yeah, I got the microphone. I want to add a couple things, guys. I'm glad you said about gun safes because I've experienced this with probably 20 people in Santa Rosa now that I'm up there. People have started using gun safes in lieu of safe deposit boxes and safes. They're fireproof rated. They haven't worked. Even the little safe deposit boxes or safes you get at Costco that are supposedly fire rated, they have not. This is a severe fire, but they didn't withstand it. I can tell you people, jewelry melted, money was gone they had in those boxes. So, just a word of caution there, everybody. And then about the insurance, these people are walking wounded, and they're asked to itemize in great detail everything they have. I had lunch with a business owner yesterday, and they sat there and they said, I go, how's it going? They lost their home, their kids have been in different schools, all kinds of stuff. He goes, now I got to sit down and try and figure out my taxes, and I have no records. So, videotaping things, taking pictures. I've seen people that you think you can do it, Michael, but the people that I saw after that fire, they were in no condition for a long time to go through what the insurance company required.
Yeah, it's
You don't have earthquake insurance, but there's an earthquake causes a fire, and you have to catch this fire. Fire insurance comes in.
yes.
Two questions. One, what is personal offense insurance?
So if you get sued for slander, I'm hoping I pronounce it, libel, yeah, wrongfully arrested,
Badly or something.
yeah.
Okay. Second, can you overinsure? Can you just say?
Oh, absolutely, you can overinsure. I do it all the time. There's some people that go, if you say it's worth $300,000, I'll insure it for $350 because it costs me $40 a year. I'm okay with that. I'm okay having a little bit more than not enough. Ed.
So did I understand you to say that if you have a loss, your house burns, and you decide not to rebuild it for an extended period of time, a couple, 3 years, that your insurance does not cover it?
So here's how that works. So let's just say, for example, this happened in Lake County. A neighbor to one of my clients, their house burned down in Lake County, okay? They were insured, let's just say, for $300,000. The bank wrote them a check. They had no mortgage. The bank wrote them a check and said, here's $190,000. That's the depreciated value. That's the value of your house that we determined it to be when it burned down. Here's a check for $190,000, okay? and you guys are probably going, well, he was insured for $300,000. Why doesn't he get a check for $300,000? The $300,000 is the cost to rebuild. You're not just going to get a check for that and say, here's $300,000, do what you want. So they got a check for $190,000. They hit the road, they bought an RV and left, and sold their land for $25,000. Now, if they had decided to rebuild, as they showed receipts, they would have up to $300,000. Okay, they'd get that extra $110,000 if they rebuilt. But in this particular case, they chose to move to Florida, I think it was. So they took their $190,000, sold their vacant land, and left. Yes, Judy, I'm sorry.
You mentioned jewelry.
Yeah.
My insurance agent said it's so expensive he doesn't even do it. Doesn't insure anything.
I'm not even with them, but I call State Farm because they do a really good job. I'm serious.
What about jewelry on your body? If, say, you lose it, or is it insured the same?
Yes and no. So if I'm going to try and give you a really short answer for this. It's called scheduled property. So if you have a wedding ring, let's just use a wedding ring, and you schedule your wedding ring on either on your homeowner's policy or on a separate policy, it covers it for mysterious loss, if it falls out, theft. There's also another unscheduled where you just say, I have jewelry worth $25,000. Basically, depending on the company, they might say it's for theft or whatever. The best bet is just to do, because it is a little bit more, is just to go and schedule it. So you get it for example, a client of mine, she just got engaged, she went to the airport, they were going on their honeymoon, she washed her hands, she took her ring off, she left. When she came back, guess what wasn't there, okay? So she had insured it as scheduled property. They gave her basically exactly what she had gotten before, what she had. They were able to replace that. But had she not insured it that way, or it was unscheduled, which again is a whole scheduled, I'm not even going to go into that, it would have been a depreciated value, essentially. One more, okay.
I was just interested on how many houses up in the Coffee Park area actually had fire sprinklers, if any.
Most likely zero. I mean, fire sprinklers is basically, it's a new code. It's required on I believe the realtors might know, I think it's required on new builds, and I don't know when the year where that was. 2006 it was required on all new builds. So if you're rebuilding, you have to have it. But anything prior to that, I mean, unless you chose to do that yourself, no, it didn't have it. Yep, there you go.
That's great. I do have one really quick question. A lot of the people in Coffee Park had their homes and they had their businesses in their homes. Homes were insured. A lot of the business stuff was not. Why would that be? Why did they not have their equipment, supplies at their home, like a landscaper, contractor, electrician? Why would they not have that insured?
Because they assumed it was covered by the home. It's two different. So when you have a business, that's commercial. And when you have a house, that's personal. That's two different things right there. A lot of people will blend that together. They'll look and go, it's all the same. It's completely different. And you can't insure one on the other. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. You have to split it and look at it in two different ways.